Hello and welcome to the third E3 2013 special of the Guy Cockup Video Game Podcast. For this edition, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Nate Lanxon, who is the editor of Wired.co.uk. Nate, thanks for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Glad to be back.
How's it going so far? Are you alright?
I am extremely alright. I'm tired, exhausted, but seen a lot of very exciting stuff and very pleased to be talking to you about it.
Yeah, and we're in your hotel room as well, which makes it even better.
It is, yeah. It's good. I'm sitting on a rather comfortable feather mattress of some description. That's very soft.
Okay, well, moving on swiftly.
Yes.
So tell me, what's your highlight and maybe low light of E3 so far? What have you enjoyed and what haven't you enjoyed?
I'll be a little bit predictable. If for anyone listening to this, perhaps who knows me, my highlight was Final Fantasy 15.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay. You're one of the hardcore Japanese RPG guys in the industry.
There are harder core than me.
Okay,
but when it comes to Final Fantasy, my core is pretty hard, and Final Fantasy 15 was a great title for me to see because it was originally announced as Final Fantasy Versus 13 in 2006 at E3. We'd heard very little about it since then, and they finally showed it off. It's a next-gen title. It's coming out next year. And although it's a bit of a sausage fest, like there's no female characters that I've seen in this so far.
There must be a female character, but
there might be. But if it is, then it's going to come. I fear it'll come out as a token, because every single character we've seen so far is male, dressed in black, big swords. It's a little predictable on that side, but it does look like a great game. I'm very excited about that. That was probably my highlight, and for a less fantasy focused highlight, I think Rise on the Xbox One looks terrific.
I'm going to push you on this one, Nate, because I saw it at the press conference and I thought this is some generic Rome God of War. The opening of it looked very like God of War and Saving Private Ryan. It looked very generic. What was so special about it?
I think the reason I like it so much is that it's the first title that I've seen and played that, to me, looks like a next-gen title.
Right.
In terms of just subtle details, and a lot of next-gen that we've seen is about subtlety. It's about background. It's about even stuff going on in the cloud you might not even be aware of, and I think that on a separate issue, that's an interesting thing to see marketed, I think, later this year and next year. But just in terms of, seeing AI battling AI. Like, you can interrupt them and they'll battle you and they'll run away and fight another AI. You might see 70, 80 people on screen at one time. They're all individually aware of each other. They're not pre-programmed. That, to me, is very impressive, and I think it sets an interesting benchmark.
Did you come out of any of the press conferences and say, right, I'm going to put my pre-order in for any of these consoles? Or are you...
No, because I expect all of my consoles to be delivered to me by hand in a leather box.
Right, okay. That's your level of expectation.
But there's an element of truth there. No, to be honest, I've been a hardcore Xbox fan for years. I didn't even get a PS3 until about 2 years ago. The PS3 that I had, it was an Office PS3 that we just had debugged for like reviews and things. I was an Xbox guy, but I came away from Sony's press conference thinking, okay, so it's PS4 time.
Right.
I was very impressed with what Sony showed up. I mean, I was very impressed with Xbox, don't get me wrong, and I'll have both, and I'm really impressed with both consoles. But in terms of like which took the gold, I think Sony really impressed me with what it's doing.
Do you think there's an element, and this is maybe a little bit of inside baseball or whatever the term is, in the games media industry? I think everyone or most people are Xbox owners, and when you get sent multi-platform releases, they're always Xbox. I don't know if you've noticed this.
Yeah,
or usually anyway.
Most of mine are Xbox, definitely.
Right, and so obviously the media doesn't inform everything, and most titles are parity 50-50 across Xbox and PlayStation when it comes to sales. But in the media, at least, it feels like with this generation, Microsoft was the default platform, whereas now it feels like PlayStation could become the default platform, if you will.
I think we might be able to go slightly more inside baseball in this, and that the PR industry and the PR execs who handle the mailing out of games probably assume a preference for certain titles, and they actually get titles on both media,
Right.
and they give people a choice, and they tend to either send out to people one version or the other based on what they've sent before, or what they've got more left of.
Right, okay. That makes sense.
I believe.
Right, okay. So, PlayStation had a great press conference, but the day after, it started to settle in, I think, for a lot of people, that PlayStation Plus is now going to become, if you want to play online, a required service, like Xbox Live. Xbox Live also has become like PlayStation Plus because you're going to get free games every month. So,
Well, you're going to get free games till December.
Right, okay. So it's basically, the two services are becoming quite similar in a lot of ways. And also PlayStation has this issue of, does it have DRM? Well, no, but it kind of can if you're a third-party publisher and you want to put it in there. What do you think? Do you think that that Sony had a great press conference and then maybe the next day there was more confusion around things?
I think it cleared up things for people who are intending on making a buying decision on day one. I think it's pretty clear that on day one you're going to get one console that you can resell games for quite easily, and one that you can't, and one that you can take somewhere, a hotel, a country villa, and not have internet and still play games, and one that you can't. But I think that over the course of the next couple of years, we will see what Microsoft's cloud services, which it's invested extremely heavily in, it talks up I think 300,000 servers globally that it's building out for Xbox Live. I think we'll start to see the fruits of that. And I think that when we do, it's going to be a different argument.
Right.
But I do think I've sort of slightly forgotten your question now.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Basically, I think I've forgotten it myself as well. But one of the questions that came out of the press conferences on the first day, on the Monday, was: do you actually lend games to your friends? I know you were talking earlier that you've lent The Last of Us to your brother. But
I haven't. I live with my brother,
right? So it's a slightly maybe different.
And he played my review copy,
right? Okay. But do you lend games around? Because I'm quite okay. I'll give you an example. I'm okay with the fact that I get Devil May Cry, for example, just because it's stuck in my mind. I get that on disc. I put that in my PC. It's linked to my Steam account, and I never touch that disc again. And I can't lend that out. I'm kind of okay with that.
Well, I think the problem is that it's journalists asking journalists, and we're in a position where we get sent preview copies of games to review, and I don't lend games. I literally give them away because I tend to keep them all at home. I must have 200 games or something just in my flat. It looks like Blockbuster, and it's got to the point now where friends come round and I say, and by the way, if you want any games, please help yourself, because there's too many of them.
So we're bad examples.
We're bad examples. However, I think back to perhaps PS1, PS2 era when I was saving up to buy games, and it was key for me to fund my next purchase to be able to trade in my previous purchase.
Sure.
It was essential. And I think that in terms of what I will be advising people is like, if you're thinking of buying one or two games and you only want the AAA titles as they come out, then you're going to need to want to focus on how to afford those. And I think a key part of that's going to be being able to resell them. And I guess be able to lend them and to borrow them from friends. To go back to your original question, is to be able to do that, and I think people will continue to want to do that.
Absolutely.
While they cost £50 a pop, and that's a deeper issue. Are games too expensive? The answer is yes. Look at iOS, £5-6. Tell me the last time you heard someone saying, "Man, I wish I could sell this game and trade it in."
Right.
Never ever a conversational point, because they cost £5-6. £50, it's an issue.
Yeah, it's a serious investment. You're obviously the editor of Wired.co.uk. You attend a lot of events. I want to get your opinion on how E3 compares to the likes of CES or IFA or the other tech events. Is it exciting? Do you find it fun? And is it a similar event to CES, for example?
It's not fun. Let's put it that way. And compared to CES, it's weird because CES used to be about games.
CES, actually, a long time ago, E3 did spring out of CES.
Yeah. No, I mean it's It's a difficult one because you know, as a journalist, we're obviously under pressure to be finding the biggest stories, reporting quickly, and that adds a lot of pressure. And E3 is quite small and has a lot of people.
So you mean it's quite physically confined? Is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. Right. And so for me, it comes down to the point of, you know, who have I got briefings with? Who can I go behind closed doors to preview things with? But it is also physically big. It's small for a convention compared to, say, I don't know, IFA, which takes place in August.
Like 15 like aircraft hangars, isn't it? It's like
navigating that is like trying to, I don't know, navigate someone's dreams after some crazy drug-induced panic. It's a bizarre convention to navigate, and it makes no sense. Compared to that, E3 is a gem. But at the end of the day, you're going around a lot of booths. There's a lot of people competing for your attention, and you're fighting to get in for the things you want to see before anyone else. It's very visual. It's very male-centric. And I'm increasingly aware of this. Like, there are a lot of female gamers and a lot of female game reporters, and it's very much more than ever. I think gaming as a thing has never been more gender neutral in many regards, and yet E3 still feels like. I mean, tell me, you can answer me a question as well. Did you see a single male booth attendant that was just there to get your attention?
No, not really. No,
and that's the point.
You go to Nintendo, definitely, and there's tens, if not hundreds, of beautiful girls there to kind of give you. They kind of tell you a little bit about Zelda, and you can tell that they've been trained for that one game for these 3 days to know what they're not know what they're talking about, but answer basic questions. It's all very odd. It's very strange.
It's very surreal, and you have to break through that. And
although, actually, just to answer your question, yes, there were a couple of male demonstrators on Nintendo's stand. But that's the only one I can think of.
In my time, and I think we've been out here the same amount of time, I haven't seen one. And, you know, walking around the show, you know, it is definitely there are 20 men to every woman that you see walking around. And, you know, in a sense, it's like, okay, well, fine, like there is a choice to come here. And if 20 men for every one woman chooses to come here, then, you know, you can't necessarily complain about that on face value. But when you sort of look at the way that attention is tried to be got and things like that, it does feel a little bit one-sided, and I'm sort of a little bit.
Does it make you feel uneasy a little bit, or
just because it's never been a more accessible medium?
It's kind of a shame. What is that different to CES though? Is that
a little bit?
From what I remember, I went to CES maybe 6-7 years ago, and that was very. There were lots of similar scantily clad girls around the show. I think it's actually E3 is getting better. I don't remember seeing.
It's not. It has to be highlighted. It's not. It's not unexpected. It's not gratuitous. It's not offensive. It's not over the top at all. It's different to E3 because E3 is a more diverse convention in that at least at E3 it's just gaming, whereas at CES it's hardware, it's software, it's services, it's business, it's all sorts of different things. But it's just one of these things where I still found myself slightly annoyed by the fact that I was walking down a corridor and, it's another woman dressed up in heels and cosplay and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, look, you can get my attention by,
having a good game.
Having a good game. Right. I don't necessarily, that's not what's getting my attention. What's getting my attention is, a great video display or,
just a good game or a compelling story or a developer that cares about what they're doing,
Exactly. And so you take a step back and you think, well, is something still a little bit mismatched here? But
I'd say so. Yeah, it's still a very strange one. What I will say though, kind of in defense of E3 is, I think I was talking to Jeff Canasta about this yesterday, that it's kind of an open secret in LA that half the people here have managed to blag a ticket because they're somehow connected to game retail or they've got a blog or whatever it is. So there's a lot of guys that kind of just get a ticket because they've got a mate that works in whatever it is here, Electronic Boutique or God, is it it's GameStop, isn't it? And they just end up clogging the halls up and queuing around the block. It's very strange, isn't it? Because you see a lot of people queuing for hours to see something like Destiny. Yeah. And it's just a video. It's just a 10-minute video, and it's kind of like the ride at the park, at the theme park. It's kind of odd. I don't think there's a question there, but it's just an odd part of E3. Having been here multiple years, Nate, have you got any kind of funny stories or anything that sticks in your mind from E3 previous years?
Well, no, I have to say, I mean, firstly, I mean, it's interesting. I was thinking about the Tokyo Game Show, which is such a bizarre alternative to E3 in a way, because it's basically just Sony. Microsoft isn't exhibiting there. Nintendo does a satellite show. It's not there. And it's always quite weird to go to the Tokyo Game Show and think, wow, it's just all Sony stuff here.
Surely some Square Enix, but mostly Sony, yeah.
So PlayStation. Let's
yeah.
PlayStation. I mean, PlayStation. A bit of mobile, and I have to say, some of the booth attendance there way more over the top than at E3. I won't give any examples, but it's the only time I've ever gone from having a photo with someone dressed up as someone out of Zelda and then hugging a Moomin. But this year, I mean, funny example. This year, I was running to a booth and I quite literally ran into Peter Molyneux.
Right.
I was like, oh, sorry. Oh, hello. Liked your video the other day. Oh, thank you very much. and then went to my meeting. I was like, that was bizarre. I could have asked him a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
But there you go. That's just
Have you met him before? Do you know?
I have met him before. I met him a couple of times. But it was just that weird moment where I was running from one thing to another because of the sheer frantic nature of E3. And you run into, one of the most well-known and famous British game developers, and it's like, oh, sorry for running into you. By the way, lights that. Off you go.
Yeah.
It was just
odd.
To me, it underscored the whole nature of E3. It's about, just frantic thing that even running into somebody like that, you kind of, it's like, I don't know what it's like.
No, it's an odd one. So I was running around, I think, Sony this morning, and I, just randomly came across Don Mattrick, who's the head of the main guy at Microsoft, and he's just wandering around, and you can go up to him and say whatever, ask him any questions. I'm sure he's very well PR trained. Yeah. But we were crossing the road, and we saw the creators of The Last of Us. Yeah, had a conversation with them. They're lovely guys. Yeah.
That was definitely bizarre. But again, kind of underscores the whole point of E3 in a way, is that it is this meeting of the games industry. Whether you're here for business, whether you're here for retail, whether you're a blogger, whether you're a Skylander-based YouTuber who's making £3,000 a month off gameplay footage, whether you're like us, journalists reporting on what's new. It's like it's just a great atmosphere for gaming.
So it leads into my next question, because it sounds, I think I know the answer, but what is it still relevant? Because I feel sometimes with E3, like I've seen it all before. I've seen Call of Duty, I've seen these racing games, same thing over and over, and I feel like sometimes the interesting party is happening elsewhere. It's happening in the offices of mobile game developers or indie game developers, and it's not at E3 because they can't afford to be there. Is E3 still relevant?
I think you have to think about to whom is it relevant, because there are many reasons to be at E3, and many of those reasons, or rather, there are many purposes to be at E3, and many of those purposes do not necessitate being here. E3 definitely has a reason to be here, if only to make a major newsworthy event of gaming as a media. This is the event that you're gonna get, the tabloids, the likes of the Daily Mail, the morning TV presenters,
or even yourself as well. Wired, is definitely going to cover it because there's big news stories here.
Yeah, but we're going to cover this stuff anyway. We cover this year round, but it takes an event as grand as something like E3 for the people who don't normally cover games to stand up and pay attention and say, this is happening, you should fly out there and cover this. Sure. And that gets the games in front of the people who don't normally necessarily pay attention to games news. For that reason, I think it's still very relevant. For myself as a journalist, I come here not necessarily to play the games, to see the previews, the videos, because yes, you can see those anywhere. I can ask for that back in London and set up those things. It's really because the people who make these games are here. They're on site. It's the interviews. It's kind of the behind closed door stuff that we come here for. Again, for that reason, still relevant. For a lot of people, I don't know. I really don't, because sad as it is to think, you can do a lot of games coverage, sitting in your underwear on a sofa. And
with an internet
I
connection.
speak from experience on that. That's not a derogatory thing. I've enjoyed that privilege many times. In fact, we're doing it now. But
we are fully clothed, we should say.
Well,
I am anyway.
You are. But no, I think E3 are currently still relevant, even if only to make it a big enough event that it gets in front of people who don't normally cover games, and to keep the discussion around gaming and its importance as a medium for not just violence and controversial airport scene shootings.
Sure.
I think that's really important.
I think we're going to get more and more like Nintendo doing their own thing. Why would Microsoft in future want to put themselves against Sony or vice versa?
Well, I think about Rockstar.
Rockstar, they're complete biggest game of this year, not here. I mean, mentioned briefly at the Sony press conference, but
token mention at best.
Quite happy to do their own.
And you got to think, do they need it?
No,
let's be honest.
No.
Is GTA 5 going to flop?
No, it's going to do amazingly well, I'm sure.
So to turn the question around, I mean, who is the relevance for? Is there a relevance for games publishers to be here? I mean, I think about, a game like Octodad, which I'm very excited about. It's a unique game. It's innovative, it's bizarre, it's funny. There's a game called Joust that doesn't even use the screen. It's all based on the PS1, on the PS...
The PlayStation Move, yes. Yeah.
It's all about vibration. It's an innovative, independent title, and it does take a convention like E3 to attract people here, and then hopefully get them to go over and see that sort of stuff, and give them the attention that they rightly deserve. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I'll agree completely. If you've not seen the video for Octodad or Joust, I played Joust. It's amazing, brilliant game. So do check them out. What's your favorite thing, Nate? My favorite thing about E3 is the press conferences, because now they're broadcast all over the world. Feels like the gaming everyone that's interested in gaming is watching something at the same time, commenting on it on Twitter.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not at all. Everyone can get involved in E3, and the brilliant thing is watching tweets coming out of it. I think that's actually my favorite thing, watching tweets and getting this common feeling of how a company is doing, and watching the funny comments and everything happening. I'm not kidding at all. That's my favorite part of it, I think. What's your favorite part?
I've had stomach upsets that I've enjoyed more than the average E3 conference.
Okay, I should qualify. There were points in the Sony press conference where I think it might have just been a long day where I was genuinely yawning, even though it was, quite...
Okay, no, I don't mean it like that. No, I mean, it's because all of those announcements are coming out thick and fast, and you've got people watching live streams, and you're competing with those guys, and you're sitting in a cramped, hot environment with two
bad Wi-Fi,
giant fat people next to you, bad Wi-Fi, and you're trying to compete with the guy sitting at home, supping a beer and able to get just the same great coverage.
Yeah, true.
It
doesn't make sense when you kind of step back from it. The thing that I hate, and I had this conversation with Chris String earlier this week from MCV, is it's the whooping and the hollering. I think
it's an American thing.
It's the guys. I've been sat next to many Brits who do the same thing. Not that I recognise. They will be watching a video from something that's very innocuous, the Project Spark or whatever it's called from Microsoft, the game creator software, literally shouting expletives when they see the most innocuous of things happen. And it's just, I can understand that they get swept up in the atmosphere of it, but they're so easily excitable. And one of the things is that Sony, I think, they invite people that are massive fanboys down, but. What do you think? Is it annoying? Is it just me?
Or when people whoop in a press conference?
Whoa, yeah. Screaming expletives.
If I knew they were all journalists, I would be annoyed, but they're not. E3 does attract a lot of, media buyers who are themselves huge gaming fans, and for them, it's like going to see their favourite band come on stage. And
it's Christmas as well, and it's everything.
I can't say that it annoys me. It annoys me if I see another journalist do it, because I think That's not being,
Impartial,
unbiased,
yeah.
impartial. I think that is showing. I mean, trust me. I mean, I was there. Like, I was almost wetting myself when I saw Final Fantasy 15 come out, but I didn't stand up to let everyone see that.
Sure.
I held it in.
Yeah.
And I let that feed out in my editorial.
Let that feeling of weeing yourself, basically.
And that kind of warm, satisfying, slightly unplanned but yet pleasant feeling. No, it doesn't bug me unless I see another journalist do it, and then I kind of think, seriously, dude.
So your one game, to wrap up on, Nate, your one game that you can't wait to play was from E3?
I'm not going to say Final Fantasy 15 because it's too predictable.
Okay.
I'm not going to say Beyond Two Souls because it's a PS3 title, and I kind of feel like that's sort of missing the point. I'm very excited to play that.
I don't think it is. Beyond Two Souls is one of my most anticipated. I was really worried that it seems to have turned into a completely different game at E3. It's like some Afghanistan set, like, I don't know, war game now. I don't know. I thought it was a cool psychological thriller. It just seems to have changed a lot.
And I can't say Destiny because it's too obvious.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go.
Can Destiny. I say Octodad?
You can say Octodad. Yeah, it was a great video. I mean, it was shown during the Xbox One conference, I think, wasn't it? It was Xbox One, and it looks incredible. Like, just so out there. You're 8-legged, obviously, because you're an octopus. Dad.
Thanks for that reminder.
But yeah, I don't know much more about it other than it looked brilliant in the press conference.
I think in terms, I'll give an answer for next gen. I think it's Rise.
Yeah,
I think it's
I
Rise.
can't believe you're saying Rise. You must have seen something completely amazing.
Well, I got to play it.
You got to play it. Yeah, I've
most people didn't. So they only got to see it. I got to play it. It was. I enjoyed playing that game. It was just a bit. It was satisfying. It was fun. I think. I think it would be Rise currently.
Cool.
Apart from Final Fantasy 15.
Well, I like a controversial opinion. So yes, Nate, where can we find more of your stuff? Where are you online?
Wired.co.uk, of which I'm the editor. I do all the games coverage and consumer tech coverage there, and the Wired.co.uk podcast, in which you'll also hear Guy.
Yeah, if you're not sick of hearing both of us talking, you can hear that as well. So yeah. Nate, thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of E3.
Thank you. You too.